My name is Jonathan, and I'm 21 years old, and this all took place when I was 16. What happened to my friend and I still haunts me and freaks me out to talk about, even to this very day. I was sleeping over at a friend's house one night, and it was in the middle of the week, and school was called off early in advance for the next day. I live in Colorado, and we get hit with some pretty crazy snowstorms in the winter, and this was one of those nights. The roads were so bad that the school called for a snow day, so I was really excited. I was staying at my friend Tyler's house, and we were as happy as any other 16-year-old would be about having no school. Luckily, he lived in the same neighborhood as me, so all I had to do was pack my bag up with the things that I was going to need for the night and just walk over there. It's no more than a 5-minute walk, so really, it was no big deal. Of course, our parents had to work the next morning, so we were going to have the house to ourselves all day the next day. We stayed up late and played video games and goofed around all night, talking about the most random stuff you could imagine that teenage boys would talk about. Nothing weird happened that night. It was a normal night. However, the next day was when things went crooked. I would say it was around 11 o'clock in the morning. Tyler was making a sandwich in the kitchen, and I was using the bathroom when suddenly the doorbell rang. We both heard it clear as day. Even though it spooked us initially, we weren't that worried about it. We live in a relatively safe area, and bad things like home invasions and stuff like that are almost completely unheard of here. Tyler even made a joke about how it was probably a Jehovah's Witness or something. I ran out of the bathroom, and both Tyler and I walked over to the front door. "Yo, help me. If anyone's in there, please help me. I'm in serious trouble right now." Our neighborhood is really quiet, and it really isn't very likely for someone to knock on our door, period, as it just wasn't something that happened often. Tyler looked outside to try and see who it was, and it most definitely wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. It was some guy that was dressed in shorts and a t-shirt. He had short black hair and was probably around 5'10". "What the hell is going on? Who are you?" I asked. Tyler then hit me in the shoulder as he was clearly upset with me for letting ourselves be known. Thinking back, I really wish I wouldn't have said anything, because just maybe the man would have walked away and none of this would have happened at all. Definitely wasn't the smartest move on my part, I can admit that. The man outside then started banging on the door and begging us to let him in. We knew that something was terribly wrong, so obviously we didn't let him in. We ran downstairs and we hid in a secret spot in the basement that Tyler showed me. He called his mom to let her know, and she said that she was on her way home. Luckily, Macy, Tyler's mom, only worked about 5 minutes away from the house, so she would be there soon. It seemed like right after Tyler hung up the phone, though, we heard footsteps coming from upstairs. We knew there was no way it was his mom. "Dude, what the hell are we going to do?" Tyler said. I told him that we needed to stay calm and just wait it out. "Dude, are you kidding me? Screw that," Tyler said. "Well, what do you suggest we do then?" I asked. "Literally anything but sit down here. We need to run," he said. I didn't know how good of an idea that was, but I wasn't going to sit there and hide alone, so I followed. We opened the door ever so slowly, and we made our way across the basement to this window that we were going to attempt to fit through. I didn't see how that was going to work, but I knew it was the best option in all reality. I cupped my hands together so I could give him a boost, and Tyler managed to open the window. He struggled for a minute, but eventually he was able to make it outside. What about me? I thought silently. That was right when Tyler told me to grab the wooden coffee table across from me and use it as a stepping stool to boost me up, and then he was going to pull me out. So that's exactly what I did. I jumped up, and Tyler grabbed my arm and pulled with all of his might, and somehow I was able to make it through the window, and I made it outside as well. I had to catch my breath from panicking so hard that we didn't even realize the man was standing directly behind us. He looked at us with the most disturbing look you can possibly imagine. He was a freaking creep. We both ran towards the front of the house, and ironically, Tyler's mom was pulling in the driveway right as we made it to the end of the driveway. The man followed us, but very quickly ran the opposite way when he saw that we were with an adult. Tyler's mom called the police, and we were able to find out that the guy was a wanted fugitive that had just escaped prison less than 24 hours prior. The police showed us a picture of the guy, and Tyler and I both confirmed to the officers that it was the same person. They caught him later that night, and now he's in prison and probably will be for a long time. He was a convicted sex offender and liked to assault young boys, and more specifically boys our age. He had definitely been spying on us and knew we were alone. It makes me sick to my stomach how messed up some people are. On this particular evening, when I was 14, I was at my friend Jared's house. He was my best friend, and I went over there quite often. My parents knew I was over there, but Jared's parents didn't. I didn't know this until later. Anyways, his parents were gone for the night, so we were able to do whatever we wanted to. So of course, us being kids, we stayed up all night playing Call of Duty in the living room. Jared had his own TV and gaming set up in his bedroom, but his dad had recently just bought a new TV, which was easily twice the size of Jared's, so we were excited to move the Xbox out there and just play in the living room instead. Jared asked me if I wanted to stay the night. I kind of already thought that that's what I was doing already anyways, and so I was confused. I asked him if I was even supposed to be there, and he just kind of shrugged his shoulders, which told me no. I sighed and I just decided to go with it. A few hours passed by and we started to get tired, so Jared grabbed some blankets and 2 pillows for the both of us. We decided we were going to go to sleep upstairs in his room, so we goofed off for a little while before ultimately falling asleep. I'm a light sleeper, so it wasn't a surprise when I woke up to the sound of some music being played outside. I looked outside and I saw that there was a car parked in the driveway. I figured it was Jared's mom and dad, but when I woke Jared up, he told me that it definitely wasn't and that there was no chance that it was either of their cars. The car was still running, but it didn't look like anyone was inside of it. We ran to the living room and we found that the front door was wide open. It was at this point that the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up and I knew we were really in for some shit. Jared's room was all the way to the left side of the house and was the last door on the left in the hall. We turned around to go back to his room and grab our phones so we could call for help, but as we were passing by the bathroom, someone snatched Jared and began running away. I swear I've never felt like that in my life, like the amount of fear. I turned back around instead of grabbing my phone and I began chasing the man down. We were running through the living room and Jared was fighting, trying to get away from him, and the man was starting to gain some distance on me. Then, as I was running outside down the steps, I saw a creepy green and tan collared van parked on the side of the road in front of the house. And that's when I knew I had to do something extremely quick before something life-changing happened. I grabbed a shovel that was thankfully sitting in the front yard by the landscape bed that apparently Jared's dad left outside by accident. And I managed to get within an arm's length away from them, and I struck the guy right in the side of the leg with it as hard as I possibly could. They both fell straight to the ground, and I helped Jared up, and we ran back inside, and the man took off in his van. A neighbor saw some of the commotion and was already on the phone with the police, and they arrived not too long after. As for the other car that was in the driveway, we're still not sure what that was all about. Something tells me it was an accomplice, and maybe he got cold feet or something and ditched early. Or maybe he had nothing to do with it at all, and it was purely coincidental, but I doubt it. The police were never able to find either of the 2 suspects, and ever since that day, going over to Jared's has been weird to say the least. I've always been good friends with one of my cousins, Cole, who was the same age as I am. The 2 of us were not quite inseparable, but we always did get along very well together, and we were often found together, both in school and outside of school. When we were 12 and in the 6th grade, I was hanging out with Cole on a Friday afternoon around the later part of May, and we were psyched at the start of the weekend. We wound up at his house since he didn't live too far from me, and at one point my mom called to say that our grandpa was in the hospital. While the issue with our grandpa wasn't expected to be life-threatening, he was being kept at the hospital overnight for observation, and both my parents and Cole's were planning on staying with him and my grandma at the hospital. I was told that I was given the okay to stay at Cole's house for the night, with Cole's 15-year-old brother, Hunter, being in charge while our parents were out. This was fine by us. I got along well enough with Hunter, and he was never the bossy older brother/cousin that some of my other friends said they had to put up with. We ordered a pizza and enjoyed goofing off as boys that age tend to do. At around 9 or so, there was a knock at the front door and Cole went to answer it. I was a bit curious as to who it could be at that time of the night, and so I watched from a ways back. At the door, there were 2 older guys. They said that they were there with the city and that they were investigating reports about the water pressure supposedly being bad in the neighborhood. They asked Cole if his parents were home, and when Cole said they were unavailable at the moment, which is what we were told to say to strangers if our parents weren't home. The guys then started asking a bunch of questions about how the water pressure was in the house and if they could come inside to check. Hunter came over at that point and politely told the guys that the water pressure was fine and perhaps they should move on to check the other homes in the neighborhood. The guys seemed reluctant to leave, but eventually they turned and walked away after Hunter started closing the door. After the door was shut, we looked at each other and shrugged, but neither of us really thought too much after that, and we went back to doing what we were doing. Eventually, we decided to go to bed. Cole and Hunter shared a bedroom, and we all agreed that I'd sleep in there with them, rather than me hitting the sack on the couch or something like that. So that way we could all talk while we fell asleep. Hunter grabbed a sleeping bag out of their camping supplies for me, and when we got back into the bedroom, we all stripped down to our underwear/pajamas. And then they climbed into their beds, and I quickly crawled into the sleeping bag, and after talking for a while about random stuff, we all eventually fell asleep. Early the next morning, I got up because I had to pee, and so I quietly got out of the sleeping bag and went and did my business in the bathroom. On the way back to the bedroom, I heard something in the family room, which was on the opposite end of the house from the bedroom and particular bathroom I was using. I didn't pay too much attention to it at the time, thinking it must either be Cole or Hunter, until I got back in the bedroom and realized that both of them were still in there. Trying not to panic, I woke them and I told them that I thought someone was in the house. They quietly followed me, and the moment we walked into the family room, we saw the two guys from the night before in there. And it was rather clear that they were robbing the place. One of them started moving towards us as he pulled out a wicked-looking knife. The three of us promptly raced to the front door somehow and managed to get it unlocked and open in time, and we fled outside. As luck would have it, a cop was driving by at that particular moment, so we quickly flagged him down and we told him about the two guys in the house. The cop called for backup, and within a couple of minutes, several other cops were there and they proceeded to enter the house. After some searching, they caught the two guys. The cops figured out that the two guys must have entered from the window in the laundry room that had a broken latch, and that they had probably targeted this house specifically because they knew us kids were alone. And they probably figured that if we discovered them, we would be easier to deal with than adults. To add insult to injury, when we were waiting outside while the cops searched the house, some of the neighbors came out to see what the commotion was about. And this included some kids who went to the same school as Cole and me, including a few who were in our 6th grade class with us. It was during that time that the three of us realized that we had never got the chance to get dressed, so just like in the stereotypical nightmare, we had to stand outside in a full view of everyone in just our briefs for what seemed like forever before being allowed back inside. When we went back to school on Monday, Cole and I had to put up with more than a bit of snickering and being the butt of every joke for the next few weeks until school ended for the summer.